Welcome, Climate Viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at ClimateViewer.com. And today I'd like to ask you a question. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. Could terrorists weaponize geoengineering technologies? Question of the day brought to you by a good friend of mine, Nikki Florio from Be Heroic. That's BEE heroic.com. She sent me an email. And I want to jump on this immediately because I think that it's really a pertinent question. We always talk about the governments using geoengineering for nefarious purposes. What about terrorists? What about just companies? What about individuals? Russ George comes to mind. He was the rogue geoengineer who did ocean iron fertilization, where he dumped a bunch of iron fillings in the side of Haida Salmon Restoration Project. And they called him a rogue geoengineer, just one individual doing it. So could terrorists weaponize geoengineering technologies? Let's jump right into that. And over here on the counterterrorism group, not a lot of info on them. I was trying to figure out who they were, so I did a little digging and I looked at their, about page and our mission and all of that. And I noticed down here security firm Paladin 7, which is some intelligence group out of DC. Move that out of the way. And they basically, they're a think tank. Looks like they're based out of Washington, DC metro area, and they also known as Paladin 7 Global Research Strategies. I don't know that that's actually true, but sub-organization of the Diversa Group. Regardless, cybersecurity, homeland security, national security, they wrote this article. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, instead of just reading the entire thing to you, links will be in the details, pinned at the top of the comments. If you go on to enjoy this information, please, tap that subscribe button, click that bell, smush that like button gently, ever so gently. And if you can support my work, this video and everything I do is Creative Commons, non-commercial, free for you to download, distribute wherever you like, because sharing is caring and knowledge is power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring up her email because she did the beautiful favor of highlighting the important parts for me, and then we're going to race through the rest of this real quickly. So what I'm going to do is bring this up real fast, and there we go. So Nick, you sent me this today about 7 hours ago, and I had to jump right on this. Terrorists in the next 10 to 15 years may weaponize geoengineering technology to create food or economic insecurity. Let's make it a little bigger. See if you guys can still read it. Okay, there we go. I don't like that border on the side, but whatever's. Stratospheric aerosol injection can protect the planet from getting warmer by injecting materials such as sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. Appreciate you subbing. Into the stratosphere to, it's actually cutting it off, reflect sunlight, but it could also prevent crops from getting enough sunlight, diminishing crop yields, additionally cause ozone depletion, increase ultraviolet radiation exposure, and negatively impact the health of people. Much of the discussion is purely theoretical due to our limited understanding of geoengineering's potential negative effects. And by our, I mean they, because they are writing this, not me, because I'm telling you what, I know all about the negative side effects. Namely that spraying chemicals into the stratosphere to block sunlight mimics volcanoes. And when volcanoes erupt and inject sulfur into the stratosphere, it changes rainfall patterns on a worldwide basis, leading to monumental floods in some areas, which kill people, and leading to drought in other places, which kill people. So, yeah, it's a bad thing. A terrorist group could eventually use geoengineering technology to impact food and economic security in a country By dumping large amounts of iron dust into a specific location, they could create plankton bloom to use up nutrients from nearby waters. Like Russ George, I was telling you about the rogue geoengineering, that's called ocean iron fertilization. This could cause downstream effects on the food chain, leading to diminished fish populations. But we all know that overfishing in an unregulated industry is already killing the freaking entire ocean, which is screwing up the carbon cycle even worse than any of us ever could. But that's another seaspiracy for another video. If a country's fisheries were a crucial component to its food and economic security, smaller fish populations could drive human insecurity. Additionally, if targeted stratospheric aerosol injections are possible, terrorists could use a targeted injection to prevent a region from getting enough sunlight. A decrease in sunlight could be large enough to affect crop yields. Diminished crop yields could drive economic insecurity as well as food insecurity. A terrorist group's use of geoengineering technology would be unlikely to produce a backlash from the affected population. Why? Because they'd never know that it was caused by some dudes or some governments or some terrorists, because rogue geoengineering is undetectable. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute. Since there are short-term variations in weather and ecological conditions, it would be difficult to conclude that geoengineering was the direct cause. The only way to confirm this would be to detect the use of OF or SAI, ocean fertilization or stratospheric aerosol injection, which is exactly what I've been saying in my NMOD Environmental Modification Accountability Act for over 5 years, closer to 7, possibly 10. But anyway, at least as early as 2011. So yeah, 10. Back then I called it the Clarity Clause. I gave it a new name to make it more understandable. There is currently no evidence that terrorists have any intent to use geoengineering technology for harm. This is likely due to the limited knowledge about its harmful effects. Again, not limited to people like you climate viewers. Anybody who's been a long time climate viewer, you already clearly know this stuff. I've been over it hundreds of times for years on end. This is no secret. We all know what's the what on that. The EMH2 team, and that's the team that wrote this, predicts that if this technology can be used for a targeted destructive applications, there are roughly even chance that terrorist groups will pursue it as a weapon. Currently, there is no federal body in the United States regulating the sale or use of geoengineering technology. Nobody's regulating this. Nobody's stopping you from buying the chemicals or equipment to do geoengineering. Because individual countries have not regulated this technology, the capability and intent are the only factors limiting a terrorist group's acquisition, or for that matter, a freaking government's use of it. But wait, there's more. They go on to mention the Convention on the Prohibition of Military or any other hostile use of environmental modification technologies, the NMOD Treaty, bans the use of environmental modification for military purposes. This could cover the use of geoengineering technology, but non-state actors would not be impacted. So let me break it down for you. Let's read that next line first. Some believe that the weaponization of geoengineering technologies is possible and suggest using nuclear security frameworks to govern the technology. 17. And when I looked at this, it really punched me in the nuts. We'll finish this up. Studies on military applications of geoengineering technology should be highly classified to avoid giving terrorists potential ideas. Studies on military applications of geoengineering should be highly classified to avoid giving terrorists potential ideas. Now, Riddle me this. Let me know in the comments. What in the hell would the military be doing studying military applications of geoengineering if it could not be used as a weapon? This is important for this video because that's what this video is all about. Geoengineering as a weapon, whether it's terrorists, whether it's government, bad idea. Why is the counterterrorism group saying, on the one hand, the NMOD ban, the weather warfare ban of 1978, prohibits military use of weather modification technologies, but that, let me get this straight, studies on military applications of geoengineering technology should be highly classified because they're the same damn thing. If one changes the global climate by dumping chemicals into the sky, you change weather. So geoengineering is weather modification on a worldwide basis. Weather modification can be geoengineering if done on a large enough scale. Don't take my word for it. James Roger Fleming, Jim Fleming, the world's top historian on this subject, agrees with me on this, has said so, and confirmed that what China is currently doing with its weather modification project is large enough to be considered geoengineering. So suck on that, PhD guys watching this video who want to argue about this. We also recommend researching defense capabilities to ensure food security for areas that could be impacted by agro-terrorism via geoengineering. New word for today, agro-terrorism, like agricultural terrorism. I like it. I'm going to use it. So this is a hell of a thing. CTG, the counterterrorism group, works to detect, deter, and defeat terrorism around the world by analyzing worldwide data, searching for hidden information, developing knowledge, and providing solutions. EMH2 works to mitigate the negative impacts of emergencies, health threats, global hazards, and related terrorist activities. Now back to what the point of the day. They talk about NMOD, and they say that this could be used, that this won't affect non-state actors. That military is banned from using weather warfare technologies, but that geoengineering, military applications of geoengineering should be highly classified, totally contradicting themselves. And then they go on to say that some believe that, some believe that weaponization of geoengineering technology is possible and suggest using nuclear security frameworks to govern the technology. Now, and it says right there, 17. So I scrolled on down. And what do we get? 17. An internationalism that protects. Why we need to reboot the Baruch plan for geoengineering from, wait for it, the Council on Foreign Relations, March 2021, followed up by a retort, can solar geoengineering be used as a weapon? Council on Foreign Relations, April 2021. So 2 months in a row, just recently, the CFR is talking about geoengineering. Can it be used as a weapon? And how do we regulate it? Now, they said some should use the nuclear, nuclear framework. Okay. Now I want to be very clear about this before we go any further. This is the article from the Council on Foreign Relations, an internationalism that protects, why we need to reboot the Baruch plan for geoengineering. And I was kind of struck by this. The Baruch plan, derived from the Atchison-Lilienthal report, laid out 3 characteristics of atomic weapons that made governing this technology unlike any other previous arms control challenge. First, the technology was more powerful than any other weapon in existence, right there. It only took one bomb to wipe out a city and two to force the end of the 6-year World War. There's also a lot of lies about that. Not going to go into it in this video. Second, he never needed to even detonate the bombs. The Japanese were begging to end the war before he dropped them. He dropped them to flex on Russia. But that's a story for a whole nother time. Second, there were no defenses or countermeasures against atomic bombs. There are no defenses or countermeasures against geoengineering. Anti-aircraft systems of the time were unlikely to bring down a solo plane in destructive radius of atomic bomb meant that civilians would have no time to flee and attack. Third, there was no longer any secrecy surrounding the bomb, at least among the major powers. American, British, Canadian, and French scientists had worked on various facets of atomic technology during the war, and by 1945, Germany, Japan, and the Soviet Union all had their own experiments underway, which again is why the bombs were dropped specifically to flex on Russia and get them to agree to, anyway, side story. But let's just rephrase that. Third, there was no longer any secrecy surrounding geoengineering, at least among the major powers. Council on Foreign Relations prick who wrote this. The Baruch Plan proposed that all atomic weapons be placed under the control of the United Nations. Can we blow this up for everybody playing along at home? The Baruch Plan proposed that atomic weapons be placed under control of the United Nations, which would oversee all peacetime research into the field and physicists call nucleonics. In addition, participating countries would be subject to UN inspections to make sure they were not violating the plan by making their own atomic weapons secretly. In presenting this international governance arrangement to the UNAEC, Baruch said, "The peoples are not afraid of internationalism that protects. They are unwilling to be fobbed by mouthings about narrow sovereignty, which is today's phrase for yesterday's isolation." Unfortunately, Baruch's warnings went unheeded. The United States and Soviet Union could not agree on vital matters of inspection and control, and the plan was not adopted. Narrow sovereignty carried the day. Now let's rephrase this. The Baruch Plan, as applies to geoengineering, would basically put all geoengineering studies under the control of the United Nations, which would oversee all peacetime research into the field and physicists called climate engineering, climate intervention, climate restoration, or solar geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol injection. Dude, this is bruh. This got me heated. So the Council on Foreign Relations clearly knows about my plan. My plan is very simple. It is called the Environmental Modification Accountability Act. And what it draws on is the idea that we banned nuclear upper atmospheric explosions. It's called the Limited Test Ban Treaties, followed up by many other treaties. But regardless, we created an international monitoring system ran by the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization that listens for the detonation of nuclear bombs so that they can trust but verify if somebody violated the ban. So the point being that what we need is we need accountability. We need transparency. We need to know if somebody's blowing up a nuclear bomb in order to catch them in the act. Same with weather modification, weather warfare, same with geoengineering. If you can't detect when people are doing geoengineering, then you can't detect if that weapon has been used. That's what I'm saying. The Council on Foreign Relations is spinning that crap and saying, no, let's not follow what actually happened. Let's follow this Baruch Plan that failed and give the UN complete control over geoengineering. The United Nuts can kiss mine. Because UN not going to be, no, bad. Now at the same time, I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, right? Because the NMOD treaty is a United Nations agreement to ban weather warfare. So Jim, why are you over here saying, let's update the weather warfare ban of 1978 by giving it teeth and creating an international registry of atmospheric experimentation so that we can know who's doing weather modification and then catch the people who never told us, and those are the bad people. Because you got to start there. But even after that, the next step is clearly to bring it to a local level so that we have a national policy on this, and then we have a state-by-state policy on this. Hell, you could make a county policy on this. If you could detect rogue geoengineering, if you could detect weather warfare, because it can, it will be, it is a weapon, period. So let's get to the retort, because this is where it gets priceless. So now we go back to the Council on Foreign Relations, because you got to have both sides of the coin whenever you're over there. Can solar geoengineering be used as a weapon? Wait for this BS. The premise that solar geoengineering is weaponizable is either false or grossly overstated. It is time to leave such distractions behind and focus more squarely on the real dilemmas of the otherwise promising technology. It's this blog post by guest blogger for The Internationalist. This was written by Joshua Horton, Research Director, Geoengineering at the Harvard Kennedy School, and David Keith, Professor of Public Policy and Professor of Engineering at Harvard University. Both of these are from Harvard. Guess what Harvard has? Harvard has the Harvard Solar Geoengineering Program. So is it surprising that the Harvard Solar Geoengineering Program has two shills, the biggest shill on the planet being David Keith, coming on here to say, no, you can't weaponize solar geoengineering, which is a complete, utter fabrication, lie, blatant face, bold face, punch you in the face lie. David Keith, I swear to God, debate me. Debate me. I beg you, because I will make you look like a fool. I will take your PhD and shove it so deep in your anus that you will literally crawl out of the planet Pluto and jump to Uranus. Oh my God. Anyway, so they go through all of this, BS about how, it's, the debate on solar geoengineering, however, is haunted by the concern that such technology might be weaponized. This concern stems from long-standing military interest in weather modification technologies, most notably the use of cloud seeding during Vietnam and Operation Popeye, which led to the adoption of the 1976 Environmental Modification Convention. I say 78 because that's when it was actually ratified, but regardless, it was written the day I was born, the year I was born. Restricting hostile use of environmental modification techniques, it also stems from suggesting that governance of nuclear weapons may serve as a useful analog for governance of solar geoengineering. But fears about the dual-use nature of solar geoengineering are sometimes stated explicitly, like in this video I'm about to show you, but more often implied in terms of vaguely defined security threats or speculation about predatory geoengineering. In a recent guest blog post for The Internationalist, for example, Elizabeth Chalecki argues that just as nuclear fission can produce both weapons and energy, so too can geoengineering provide benefits if applied judiciously. Unsaid but insinuated is that solar geoengineering might also be used to wage war, which justifies placing it under international control in the same way the Baruch Plan of 1946 sought to internationalize atomic energy. The premise that solar geoengineering is weaponizable, however, is either false or grossly overstated and inapplicable to those technologies that might plausibly be deployed. precision is a defining attribute of weaponry. Indeed, there's the so-called revolution in military affairs has made it the most prized attribute for many strategists, as exemplified by the dominant role now placed by precision-guided munitions. One hallmark of solar geoengineering, however, would be its imprecision. This is like the biggest straw man argument, and this is so freaking weak. I expected so much better of an argument against from David Keith, who has been literally shilling and lobbying for geoengineering for over 15 years. For him to say, well, it's not a weapon because it's imprecise. That's right. It just hits the whole damn planet. I mean, is a nuclear bomb precise? Not really. You just kind of generally lob it over a city and it imprecisely destroys the whole frickin' city. So is geoengineering a precision weapon? No, because it can't just affect your, like, over your house. It's going to affect your whole damn state. Oh, wait, then it's going to affect your whole country, then the whole world, because that shit just spreads out and fills the entire world. So this is highly insulting to my intelligence, your intelligence, everybody. But more importantly, they went over there and they linked to this, the climate debates, how dangerous is solar geoengineering? And they had this video. It's on YouTube. And of course, me being the dick that I am, I went ahead and put a link directly to the timestamp. And I put all the references that anybody who sees this comment, if it still exists, I'm not going to refresh the page yet, but I'm pretty sure that it's probably already been deleted. Roll that beautiful bean footage and listen to the silliness. By the way, David Keith, right here, this guy, God, what egghead.
1950s ideas of weather modification and cloud seeding and things like that. Can you imagine a world where solar geoengineering becomes a tool of war?
I think it's a very legitimate worry. I think there are some methods that could be. I think we've been dealt a lucky break, which is the methods of geoengineering that appear to be most doable, like stratospheric aerosols, seem to be just useless as weapons because they, kind of have a year-long time scale and are over the whole world, and military wants precision. But I think there are methods that could in principle do precision, but they're really like space-based low Earth orbit shields that really seem science fiction and very far away.
Alex, weapon of war?
I think the precision question isn't necessarily the one we'd want to focus on. I mean, there are plenty of things that militaries have and continue to do that are, about wide-scale impacts, that are about strategic environment shift.
Bravo, sir. Give it to him.
Right. Whether you're talking carpet bombing or denying populations access to food and water, this happens all the time, right? People do things that aren't about specific targets, but are about reducing, an opponent's ability to respond in a situation, ability to endure. I can totally see situations, or at least I can imagine them, where, a nation or group X decides that it is to their advantage and to the disadvantage of, nation or group Y to alter the climate, for a number of years, to get more of the water flow off a certain mountain or to whatever, right? I mean, these don't strike me as implausible at all. I would in fact bet that there's somebody wargaming this out at, war colleges around the world. So I could totally see it being used that way. I mean, or at least used as part of strategic conflict.
I've been part of conversations with wargame people. I think the reality is the actual technology we know how to.
He's been part of the conversations with the war gamers. I mean, literally, but I've actually talked with the people who, at the CIA that want to use this as a weapon. I'm telling you, it's not a weapon. What?
Do are basically global or hemispheric with a couple year time scale, and they just don't allow you to target one area in a way that's useful. There may be ways to do that, but I think that's actually an important and lucky fact.
Last question. David, you've been thinking about this longer than anybody that I know, practically. So you've watched the curve of the thinking about this, the public policy changes, the science, the technology, the engineering. Do you feel like it's inevitable that we're going to do this?
No, I don't. A lot of people ask me that.
And at least I agree with him on that, because if I have anything to do it, no, we won't ever do it because you're freaking crazy. And boy, you really wasted your entire life talking about studying and, in case we need geoengineering. And I've talked to the war gamers and all this stuff. But no, I don't think we'll ever actually do it. David, you're so full of crap. Your eyes are brown. But for those rapid fire time, we're going to wrap this up. David Keith and Bill Gates have this thing called SCOPEX, the Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment. They were trying to launch a balloon in spring of 2019 in Arizona. They failed at that. They tried just this last year. Well, this year they were going to launch in Sweden a balloon to spray chemicals into the sky. You can see that balloon somewhere. I got it. It was originally called the Stratoshield Hosted the Sky. Intellectual Ventures. It's a Microsoft guy thing. Nathan Mervhold, the patent troll, called it the Stratoshield. They call it the Strato Cruiser. Slight change in name, same idea, but they're going to put a balloon up that sprays chemicals to do a test on geoengineering. All that failed. David Keith announces his plan. Frank Koich is also the member of this from the Solar Radiation Management and Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment at the Harvard Solar Geoengineering thing. But really, this is it. Alan Robach, who had a list of 20 reasons why geoengineering was a bad idea. I had made arguments with Ken Caldera and David Keith going back all the way to here's December 27th, 2012, where Ken Caldera is responding to me, Jim Lee. Jim, you seem to be arguing against a straw man. First, of course, if climate is modified, weather is also modified. Nobody's rebranding anything. There are two ends of a spectrum. One end in which people would try to influence specific weather events, and on the other end, which people would try to influence weather statistics, i.e. climate. There's no rebranding here. Second, you say weather modification is unproven science. Science does not try to prove nouns. Scientists try to falsify statements. Scientists work only on the unproven. Now, I had basically said, how will geoengineers address statements of the AMS, World Meteorological Organization, and National Research Council on weather modification, basically stating that cloud seeding has not been able to prove its scientific efficacy since 1946. So given the fact that it's been over 60, 70, almost 80 years now, maybe if they haven't been able to prove cloud seeding actually works and that it has a predetermined outcome, that you guys might want to work on figuring that out before you decide to cloud seed the entire freaking world. And that it could be used as a weapon. And Ken and David Keith and all the other guys in his climate engineering Google group, which you can see right here, it's Climate Intervention Google group. And these are all geoengineers. You can go read right from the horse's mouth. There's Will Burns and all the rest, Steven Salter and all these guys right here. There's Alan Robach right there. We're going to talk about him again. This is, I debated for a couple of years in this group. And you can see all of my posts right here. These are all the different posts that I was involved in on Ken Caldera's Google Geoengineering group. And I took it to them all the time. And eventually I told them they were going to be tarred and feathered. And that was probably a bad move on my part. But regardless, Alan Robach switched gears, and he said in his report, Stratospheric Sulfur Geoengineering Benefits and Risks, that number 26, ethics, military use of technology. So if it can't be used as a weapon, why does even Alan Robach, who is a geoengineering scientist, saying that it can be used as a weapon? Period. Point blank. End of story. And you can actually watch that entire video on my YouTube channel, Stratospheric Sulfur Geoengineering Benefits and Risks by Alan Robach. Simply by clicking the link and watching the whole thing yourself. And, it's pretty priceless, especially this part right here.
stratospheric aerosols, which is the idea that's gotten the most attention, which is what Yaga talked about also. So I went to the first meeting on geoengineering at NASA Ames, and this issue of Rolling Stone came out that week, and across the top, it's got our two favorite people there, but across the top, Dr. Evil's plan to stop global warming. And inside there was an article about Lowell Wood, who used to work with Edward Teller, saying, oh, we can control the climate. I'm a physicist. I'm smart. I know what to do. And I went to this meeting for 2 days at NASA Ames, and the room was too hot, and they couldn't control the temperature of the room, but they were talking about controlling the temperature of the planet. And there was these physicists and engineers thought, oh, this is a really cool problem. I started writing down reasons why I thought maybe it wasn't such a good idea. And I got up to 20, and I published a paper, 20 Reasons Why Geoengineering May Be a Bad Idea. And since then, I've looked at it more, and my latest paper has this list of 27 reasons for concern or risks. But it also has benefits. Like, if we could do it,
And of course, I was muted. Thank you, chat. Saved my day. So you can see this from 2015, the CIA, weather warfare and climate terrorism. The reason why Alan Robach changed his tune on the fact that the military can use this is because the CIA came to him and asked him just that. The CIA, Weather Warfare and Climate Terrorism on ClimateViewer.com. Check it out. And this one comes from an article called Chill Factor at CIA Weather Query. And Professor Alan Robach said, I got a phone call from two men who said they work as consultants for the CIA, and we'd like to know if some other country was controlling our climate, would we know about it? Alan says, I told them after thinking a little bit that we probably would, because if you put enough material in the atmosphere to reflect sunlight, we would be able to detect it and see the equipment that was putting it up there. At the same time, most important part, at the same time, I thought they were probably also interested in if we could control somebody else's climate, could they detect it? And the answer is no. And that's what I put right here. And this is from the same year conference by Diane Seidel. And she says, albedo variability limits potential detection of engineered increases in reflected sunlight. A fundamental scientific question is whether an engineered increase in reflectivity, either from short duration field experiments like David Key's ScopeX, which we mentioned just a little bit ago, or from prolonged implementation of a solar radiation management scheme, would be detectable with the current global climate observing system. In summary, although a very large albedo increases are potentially detectable, interannual albedo variability overwhelms the maximum conceivable increases associated with the leading proposed SRM schemes. Let me translate that for you. What that means is that nature is so freaking chaotic that we do not have good enough atmospheric sensors to detect the difference between if somebody were doing rogue geoengineering or weather warfare, or whether it was nature, or whether it was climate change, as they would put it. But don't tell me about climate change. Don't blame climate change unless you know about the climate changers. So that is a very important fact. The CIA is a major funder of the National Academy's report. So that makes me really worried who is going to be in control. because the CIA put $680,000 on a geoengineering study, and it just gets worse from there. Geoengineering may cause World War III, published June 2019. And that's why this is also important, because, you know, it's getting kind of crazy out there. UN geoengineering governance blocked by US and Saudi Arabia. This is why the CFR is, of course, bitching again. And wouldn't you know, there's CIA Director John Brennan, lionest liar to ever lie in the Congress, at the Council on Foreign Relations, talking about geoengineering. You can watch the video. Most of my longtime climate viewers have already seen it. My special on this whole topic, Henry Kissinger, the CIA and weather warfare, and how the CIA tampered with Cuba's weather, back to the Vietnam era and everything up to today. Iran accuses Israel of cloud theft, weather warfare, and the CIA Cuban rain embargo. And everybody's favorite one, back to David Keith, putting his foot in his mouth.
A decision, there was a collective decision to do a geoengineering program, and you put, say, the kind of program I think makes more sense to put about 1 million tons a year in, but let's say, you might end up killing many tens of thousands of people a year as a direct result of that decision. I think that has moral consequences. I don't sweep it under the rug. So this is a case where I take this much differently from Alan and think it's a much more serious issue. Now, it's true that as part of doing that, you would hope that the overall benefit.
So Alan Robach right here, looking really confused as the fact that David Keith right here just said many tens of thousands of people would die directly as a result of geoengineering. And that's the real important part. I mean, you know, Alan Robach is trying to play it even, give the goods and the bads. David Keith just straight out says, look, hey, we'll kill many tens of thousands of people if we geoengineer, but the benefits outweigh the risks. This is from 2013. Boy, times fly. And this is also, you can see my comments down here. Geoengineering will kill many tens of thousands.
This is a really important moral point. So if I made a decision, or if there was a collective decision to do a geoengineering program, and you put, say, the kind of program I think makes more sense to put about 1 million tons a year in, but let's say, you might end up killing many tens of thousands of people a year as a direct result of that decision. I think that has moral consequences. I don't sweep it under the rug. So this is a case where I take this much differently from Alan and think it's a much more serious issue. Now, it's true that as part of doing that, you would hope that the overall benefits of human mortality would be so that you would save many, many more people than that.
Hope my ass. That's all I got to say about that. And so anyway, that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. And so could terrorists weaponize geoengineering technology? You bet your ass they could. Could governments weaponize geoengineering technology? You bet your ass they could. Are they already? Who freaking knows? Are they already geoengineering? They admit to accidental geoengineering with airplanes and accidental geoengineering with ship tracks from international shipping and bunker fuel. Both are related to the fuel they burn. Both make clouds that block out the sun. Both are unregulated. And by the way, this technology is changing weather on a worldwide basis already. So riddle me this, climate viewers. Do you think that terrorists are going to use geoengineering, or could our government pretend that terrorists were using geoengineering to destroy crops? Could they place the blame on some poor terrorists? I mean, they blamed a guy for making a YouTube video on the Libya attack. They blame all kinds of people for all kinds of things that they're guilty of. This is a great concern for me. That's why I hope that you guys will support the Environmental Modification Accountability Act. Check it out at climateviewer.com/nmod. Please help continue to support my channel by giving a one-time donation on Cash App or PayPal, or becoming a monthly subscriber on Patreon. I would greatly appreciate that. If this is your first time here, you're watching this on somebody else's channel, here's my home base. Just look up Jim Lee ClimateViewer and hit that subscribe button. Hey man, I blew this up for you guys. I don't know why you haven't hit smushed, gently smush, SMUSH, gently smush that like button, and check me back next Sunday. I usually do these things on Sunday. Thank you all for staying tuned for this lengthy video where I ranted about the Council on Foreign Relations and this counterterrorism group talking about things they should know more about, but seem to just be willfully ignorant or are just straight up lying. So now that the truth be told, you have the knowledge, and knowing is half the battle. With information comes power. With power comes great responsibility. So I ask that you use the information I provided you today to attack ideas, not people. See you next Sunday. It's going to be cloudy. If this video resonates with you, leave me a comment because I love hearing from y'all. First time here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell. The bell doesn't always work, so come to ClimateViewer.com and sign up for our newsletter. Remember, it would be impossible for me to do this without your support, so please join my Patreon or buy me a coffee on PayPal. And always, attack ideas, not people.